So there's a lot of sophistication around, digital marketing and digital advertising to the point, yes, there's some ambient listening and, all of a sudden you mention something and it's in your social media feed or you're getting an email about it. I don't know a whole lot about that side of things. I know it happens to me, but that same technology can be leveraged to figure out, all right, Mike went on to homedepot.com. He was looking at grills. He put a bunch of stuff in his cart and he never checked out. So I have a client that works with all of these different, e-commerce sellers, right? And they have some special sauce that they put on the back end of the site that helps identify where Mike lives. And then I get all the data sent to me for Home Depot and for every other retailer that's in their program. And I have like what I call an asset library, which is all different images, all the different incentives, all the different messaging. And then I've got rules where if it says this in the data, I'm grabbing the Home Depot postcard font.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Going Beyond the Deal podcast. Today, I have my dear friend, Bill Duerr, the CEO and president of Hatteras Printing. Bill, what's going on, brother?
What's up, Mike? Thanks for having me. It's good to see you.
It's great having you on, my friend. I keep laughing because Bill and I were introduced by a friend of mine, Mike Kimmel. He introduced me. He said, "Hey, you're living in Tinton Falls right now. You have to meet Bill. He runs Hatteras Printing." I went to go check you guys out, and it was literally the quickest drive to an appointment that I've ever been to. So happy to come to the Hatteras building, anytime I want. I could probably almost see you from my balcony.
It's a strategic location just for your convenience.
I figured so much. But it's Bill's become one of these people that I've connected to, and it's more than just the business, right? And that's the whole purpose of this podcast. It's really going beyond the deal. I like to do business with people that I truly like and enjoy. I think I told you I have a no a-hole rule, and you are definitely not one of those. But we've had the opportunity to connect personally, and we're both into fitness, we're both into family, we're both into a lot of things that brought us closer together than just business itself. But what's been really interesting for me is getting to know Bill personally and getting to know about Hatteras. I mean, family business since 1983. Bill, can you give me like a little bit of the history around the business?
Yeah, so family business since 83. I was born in 83. Basically, my dad was a printing salesperson at another company. And, before that, he worked on the party fishing boats down out of Manasquan Inlet. He ran the kitchen down at the offshore in Point Pleasant. So just like, consummate hard worker trying to make, you know, ends meet and build a long lasting thing for his family. And, he spent 7 years selling printing for a company up in North Jersey. They weren't treating him fairly. So he took a risk, bought a printing press, put it, in an airplane hangar down at Alaire Airport 2 months after I was born. I'm his first son. And he figured, hey, if the business doesn't work, I'll go back into sales. And that's how Hatteras started. We're a guiding light through the print process. That was the thought behind the name. Our logo being the Hatteras Lighthouse, the Outer Banks in North Carolina and Cape Hatteras was a place that was like really near and dear to my father and my mother. So they started the company then and just kind of grew it, ran it out of that airplane hangar facility for about 7 years. And then he eventually built a building down in Manasquan in 1989, 1990, moved into there, 30,000 square feet, outgrew that. And in 2004, moved into Tinton Falls, where we are now. And we expanded into another building in 2011, and then added a third warehouse in 2016, give or take. So, yeah, the company's just constantly evolved, and a lot of it on my dad's back with his hard work and the risks he took and the team he built here, and all the growth's been kind of organic and homegrown, and it's a really cool story, and I think I've been afforded a really great opportunity to kind of take it to the next level, and that's something I definitely don't take for granted.
That's awesome. So, I mean, you basically grew up in this business. I mean, it started at birth, and now how did you make the decision to actually get into it? I'm actually kind of surprised. I mean, a lot of people I know, they kind of I've talked to other friends that are like, "Ah, if I have to have another Thanksgiving dinner conversation about the business, I'm just going to lose my mind." So, how did you go from, being a witness of it, actually getting involved with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I know when I was growing up, I always wanted to do my own thing, and to the point where the day I turned 14, I went out and got a job around the corner, bussing tables at a restaurant. I just wanted to make my own keep, and that was kind of maybe part of the naivety, stubborn teenager, whatever I was. Just I wanted to do my own thing. So I never really intended to work here, and I did work here as a kid. I kind of did everything but run the equipment. I painted the walls. I worked in handwork. I worked in pre press. I was a driver. Um, whether it was because I was in trouble or because I needed to make some money, like I spent some time working here. But I went to college. I went to Marist College. It's now Marist University, so I can
Yeah.
proudly say I'm a university graduate. And I studied digital media because I'm like, that's the opposite of printing. And that gives me kind of the ability to, use a computer, use a lot of the modern software programs and figure out where it takes me and kind of craft my own thing. And I also played lacrosse and was a player and eventually a coach. And when I coached a few years at the college level, I would talk to my dad a lot. And he coached me growing up. So we, always shared lacrosse and running a team and being a part of something. And when we were talking, every night after practice, we're talking about the same thing. I'm trying to get a bunch of 18 to 22-year-olds with our coaching staff to buy into, the overall goal and get them to realize they're part of something bigger than themselves. And my dad's talking about people and the same problems. And, after a little while of realizing that essentially businesses and teams are one and the same. Maybe there's some different goals, some different challenges, but essentially you're trying to get people to be a part of something that's greater than themselves, understand the vision, the mission, and buy into that. So, as a 27-year-old, after spending a few years coaching, I realized, well, Hatteras is actually a really great opportunity for me.
Yeah.
And once I learn the business and the industry, I can probably apply a lot of the same skills that I've developed in playing and coaching and apply them to the business. So in 2009, I decided to come into the business. I spent, quite a few years in sales, learning the market,
Yep.
and then kind of evolved into the role that I'm in now.
Very cool. Very cool. So, I mean, you'll probably remember the first time that you and I met, I asked the, obligatory question. Hey, I'm coming to meet with the CEO of a print company. And I was like, Print in a digital world? Like, how does this even, make sense these days?" And when I saw the size of Hatteras, I was like, oh my God. I mean, this is a big operation. This is a big middle market company here in New Jersey, family owned middle market company. Can you get into like the kind of the evolution of the Hatteras offerings? So, when your dad, first had the business in 1983, what was the majority of the work that he was doing? And then how has that evolved into 2025 Hatteras?
Yeah. And I think, your perception and kind of initial reaction to like printing is a lot of people's reaction. And then once you walk through the shop and you kind of hear from me what we do a little bit more, you start to look around and realize like, oh wow, I'm actually surrounded by this stuff, whether it's in the grocery store or my mailbox or driving down the road. All this stuff was printed. we've
Absolutely.
we've all just taken it for granted because it's always been there, and
Yeah.
it's definitely evolved a lot over the years. And I think when my dad first started the company, it was a lot of business cards, stationery, internal communications for companies, flyers, brochures, sell sheets, kind of like general marketing collateral. And then I think, tear pads, and then it started to evolve to direct mail, more like the direct marketing side of things. And even really when I came in the door here now 16 years ago, it was still heavily driven by marketing collateral and direct mail. So like physical materials for sales reps from major corporations to take on the road to help promote their products, or direct mail pieces ending up in people's mailboxes. And the evolution that I've, seen and kind of helped shepherd into the company, now we still do a lot of those things, but we do them a little bit differently. So marketing collateral is a huge piece, but with the collateral now we see lots of different versions for all the different demographics it may be going out to. Direct mail is now highly personalized, targeted, and data driven. And a lot of times it's kind of triggered by that online activity. So while everybody thinks that, digital advertising or email marketing or social media marketing is going to make printing obsolete, well, all those channels are very busy and oversaturated and very quick. So if the consumer or target prospect isn't engaging with them at that very moment, they're gone.
Yeah.
With print, it's coming into your home, it's timely, it's relevant, it's personalized, it's going to stick around until you're ready to engage with it. So the direct mail and the personalization, while the volumes aren't as big, the targeting and the ability to communicate with everybody on a one-to-one basis is huge now. And then we've also grown the business by doing a lot more retail signage. So things that are going into brick and mortar locations, helping elevate the brand at the point of sale, whether that's a floor graphic, a little price point signage, some type of point of purchase graphic that's explaining the features of a appliance or a product. And then we do a lot on the folding carton side, so more tied to the product. That packaging is something that I see as a huge part of our future. And then on the promotional side, we're doing these influencer kits and these PR boxes that are helping kind of take the product and then leverage a consumer, an influencer who's got a huge following, and they're sharing that opening experience and that engagement with the brand on their social platforms, which is creating huge exposure. So those areas of the company have really evolved, and they all kind of feed in and out of each other and really complement each other. So at the end of the day, yeah, it's still printing, but each different product and then the way that product ties to the market is a bit nuanced. Whether it's beauty and cosmetic or beverage or pharmaceutical or fashion, we kind of touch, all those different markets, which is fun for us. It changes every day.
For sure. Do you mind? I mean, I don't know if you're comfortable with it, but if you could go maybe kind of a little bit deeper on some of the things that you're doing. Like, I was really, surprised at, because you pick up that prescription at the store and you get this like huge book inside everything, and I didn't realize that. Oh, well, that's something that needs to be printed, obviously, right? So,
Yeah.
can you go into some of the more specific? I don't know if you can say any of the companies that you do some of the specific things for. It's just interesting for the listeners to hear.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, let's talk about the pharmaceutical side of things. It's obviously a big part of, the economy here currently.
Yep.
We do a lot on the marketing side. So when you pick up a prescription, you get what's called prescribing information. We call
Yep.
that a PI, right? That's going to tell you all the pros and cons, all the side effects, all the kind of legal things that you need to know that you may be at risk for by taking this prescription.
Hmm.
Well, on the flip side of that, on the marketing side, anytime there's a brochure, a sales guide, a patient starter kit, a visual aid that's going to go out to a healthcare provider or eventually in the hands of a patient, that marketing material also needs that same prescribing information sheet to accompany it. And that's a law. So those can't be digitized, they have to be physically printed. And for me, that means I've got to print the insert. And then on the brochure, I've got to create a pocket for that insert to go into. So while it's not the
Got it.
most exciting thing we do, there's a huge market for it. And it drives a lot of volume through the plant, and the compliance requirements, the complexity of the piece, the quality requirements are all something that we add a lot of value to.
Yeah.
So we have like dedicated equipment that just runs those inserts all day long. They print on what we call 27-pound opaque paper. It's basically like Bible paper,
Yep.
super thin, nothing fancy, but the folding and then kind of all the assembly that goes around that piece is really important, And then a completely different piece of business, you look at brands like, Calvin Klein or Tommy Hilfiger, and you go into one of their store environments, or you go to a Macy's or a Kohl's where there's a Calvin Klein or a Tommy Hilfiger section. they've got graphics, whether it's for sale signage, little pricing signage, or like what we'll call like evergreen imagery, which is more just like brand hero images.
Yep.
We're creating all those graphics for major brands that are going into those store environments or into those wholesale retail environments across the entire country. So lots of different versions of graphics, lots of different materials, all different store kits that go out. And that's kind of a regular type of repeat business. you
Yeah.
know.
I think the another really interesting one for me at least, and it's funny as my wife, asked me at the end of the day, so how was that meeting with that you went to go see Hatteras? And I said, you'll never believe this one piece of business that they have. And it's so interesting how you said the print marketing ties to the digital side. And it's funny because we always say, like, is my phone listening to me? Like, why is it all of a sudden that I see this ad?
Yeah.
And the thing that you told me that was a big part of what you guys do is that you help people that maybe they leave something in their cart, like a Cole Haan, a pair of shoes, and you're like, oh, I don't really need the shoes. And then magically in the mail, you get this card with 30% off. And you're like, oh, well, I guess I should buy those shoes now. Can you
Yeah.
can you get into that a little bit? I'd never heard of something like this, but it's so cool.
Yeah, so there's a lot of sophistication around, digital marketing and digital advertising to the point, yes, there's some ambient listening and all of a sudden you mention something and it's in your social media feed or you're getting an email about it. I don't know a whole lot about that side of things. I know it happens to me.
Yeah.
But that same technology can be leveraged to figure out, all right, Mike went on to homedepot.com. He was looking at grills. He put a bunch of stuff in his cart and he never checked out. So I have a client that works with all of these different, e-commerce sellers, right? And they
Mhm.
have some special sauce that they put on the back end of the site that helps identify where Mike lives. And then I get all the data sent to me for Home Depot and for every other retailer that's in their program. And I have like what I call an asset library, which is all different images,
Mhm.
all the different incentives, all the different
Mhm.
messaging. And then I've got rules where if it says this in the data, I'm grabbing the Home Depot postcard front. If Mike's value of his cart was above X dollars, I'm pulling this 30% off incentive. If it was below that, I'm pulling the 20% off incentive. And then I'm taking Mike's name and Mike's address and making sure it's associated with that activity. So that happens, you know, 500,000 times over. I get data in the evening. The next morning, my guys come in, our programs run. We're at the press with 500,000 different postcards based off of yesterday's
Amazing.
online activity. I'm printing those, trimming them, and putting them in the mail stream that same day that I receive the data. And you're getting it in your home within 1 to 3 days of that online activity. So that's like,
Amazing.
there's a digital kind of digital marketing company that's driving all this print, and it's
Amazing.
timely, it's relevant to most of us. It's still ironic, and it
Yeah.
drives a really strong response rate because there's a strong incentive, and it's all brands that we're already warmed up to. We've already engaged with them ourselves. Now they're
Makes a
just
lot of
giving
sense.
us the convenience of a discount to return and finish our purchase. So it's pretty cool.
Very cool. So let's go back to it for a second here. The family side of the business. What was it like? When you first started working with your dad. I mean, I've heard this story. I've seen this movie many times where it can go both ways. I mean, what was it like working alongside your dad when you came into the business? What was the best parts about it, and then what were some of the challenges?
Yeah, I mean, so it's been an awesome journey. While there's been friction at times between my dad and I, like we're both trying to accomplish the same thing at the end of the day. I think
Yeah.
we're both just leaders. We both like to be the guy. He's built this company from the ground up, so it's literally his identity. He's
Yeah.
solved thousands of problems over the years to get us to where we are.
Yeah.
And I don't take that lightly. I just think, I'm the owner's kid in my head, whether I'm a 40-year-old man or a 12-year-old kid around the business. Like I'm the owner's son, and that's a thing that's been in my head. Um, And that was the reason I never wanted to be a part of the company, because I always wanted to do my own thing. I always had that kind of complex in my head. And,
Yeah.
I grew up, my dad coached me. Like, he found a way to step away from the company, run our lacrosse program from the time I was in sixth grade to the time my brother is 2 years younger than me, through to eighth grade. So, 6 or 8 years there where my dad was dedicating a lot of time to coaching, and then all through high school, like, our biggest fan. So, like, he was always very involved, and I was very used to him kind of being, you know, engaged and pushing us. And that's really what, got us both to where we are, me and my brother.
Yeah.
Um, so that dynamic, him as our leader was set very early on.
Yeah.
And when I got into the business, I knew what I was getting myself into to a point,
Yeah.
but I figured early on, hey, I'm going into sales. I'm going to be able to prove myself here. Um, and then I'll kind of evolve into whatever lies ahead next. And, really about a year and a half into me being in sales, my dad called me into the office one day and he's like, I gotta tell you something. You're the president. I'm like, okay. I'm still cold calling. I don't think I deserve this yet, but, like, he's also throw him into the fire and let's get him to figure it out. So
Yeah.
while while I was really uncomfortable with that at the time, I accepted it, and I knew that that was going to force me to evolve and, be comfortable being uncomfortable, being in situations I wasn't familiar with. And I always had a perception in my head of, like, what a president of a company was, and I felt like I wasn't that. And some days I still feel like I'm not that.
Yeah.
So I've kind of come to be more comfortable with, hey, just being myself.
Yeah.
And I know what my responsibility is to this company, to the people who work here. Um, but just, evolving alongside my dad, and then eventually getting to a place where, hey, I feel like I can really embody the role and do what
Hmm.
needs to be done. And we both don't need to be jockeying for the position of the leader anymore. It's kind of got to be one of us or the
Yeah.
other. So it's kind of come to the point where we've removed a lot of that friction, and he's kind of not just giving me the title, but also now giving me the responsibility. And for a little while there, it was like we were both trying to be the guy, and I think it created some confusion between the two of us, and probably for some of the team members. But, like, at the end of the day, everybody knew, Bill and Charlie are both invested. They're both trying to get the same thing done. They just have very different styles, and
Yeah.
you know, ultimately, it's all for the better good.
Sweet. I think that's a great segue into the next question that I had for you. So, that style, that leadership style. So after you get called into the principal's office where you're now, okay, by the way, you're no longer just cold calling and making sales. You're president now. How have you defined your own leadership style? I mean, would you say some of it comes from the coaching experience that you've had? I mean, how do you really define that leadership style? Because the one thing that I would say is, I've never met your father, before. I've certainly read about him. I understand him, right? But there's a big generational, distance between you and him, right? So it's interesting to see, a 40 something year old person like yourself and like myself compared to someone else. How is that? How did you define your own leadership style? How's it different with your dad? And then how was that received by the employees of Hatteras?
Yeah, I mean, I think my style, whether I'm on the field or, in a business setting, um, I like to be passionate. I like to let my charisma come out. I like to kind of breathe life into the environment, right? And
Yeah.
energize people. I don't like to make every decision. I don't like to micromanage. I want to kind of let people know, hey, this is the vision, this is the mission. Here's why we're doing what we're doing. Here's how you fit into it. Now go do what you're supposed to do, And then I try to empower people to kind of execute on a daily basis. And I really focus on, the future and sales and marketing and making sure that, we're putting coal in the furnace so everybody's got the room to operate and do what they need to do.
Yeah.
And that's how I like to kind of roll. And, I think where my dad differs is he's a little bit more hard nosed than I am.
Okay.
I'm gritty. I'll hustle. I'll put the company on my back when I have to. but like he literally did that from
Yeah.
day one. 4 people in an airplane hangar 2 months after his son was born, put it all on the line, and then grew it, from the ground up. Where I've kind of stepped into a situation where I'm taking that legacy and kind of bringing the best of it forward, not forgetting what got us here, but building it for the future, building it for where we're at now, and trying to let go of maybe some of the old habits that we had that are going to hold us back as we go forward.
Yeah.
And trying to bring attention to that too, like trying to make sure that we respect where we've come from,
Yeah.
and we respect and pay homage and honor the people who've been here for 30 years and helped get us here.
Yeah.
And then make sure we've got you know those seasoned veterans, and then a batch of up and comers to kind of transfer that knowledge and shepherd the company forward. So as the leader, you've got to help everybody see themselves in that, and where they fit in to be a part of that whole.
Yeah.
And that's really what I like to do, is make sure everybody understands that their job's important, and
Yeah.
and the parts equal the whole, and all that stuff needs to come together. So
Yeah.
I like to consider myself a strong communicator, a good listener, and I have to just make sure that I'm using those skills to make it cohesive as we operate and evolve as a company.
For sure. I mean, I can comment on the cohesiveness. I mean, the one thing that I guess I would have take away from my interaction with seeing you as, the president and CEO of the company on the floor is there was just such an atmosphere of culture. It was just there was a lot of company culture. From walking in the door and dealing with the person working from the front desk all the way to working, with you had a whole team there manually packaging things. Everybody had a smile on their face. Everybody had a lot of respect for you. I pulled up and you guys were setting up picnic tables in the front, and I could already kind of feel this like cool company culture where like I could see people coming to Hatteras and saying, I'm actually happy to be here today, not just like, ugh, I'm punching the card again. So, congratulations to you guys for that, for sure.
Thanks. I appreciate that. And that's definitely something that is a tradition here. I mean, it goes back to day one, and just
Yeah.
it's a tough, every business is a tough business. If it were
Yeah.
easy, a lot more people would be doing it. And I really think our team has a lot of grit and determination. And, at the same time, we try to take care of them. And yeah, this is work, but we try to make it an enjoyable environment. And we
Yeah.
want everybody to feel good about what they're contributing to on a daily basis.
I felt like it's funny. I was walking away and I said, they probably have a great company picnic. I have a feeling they have like a great company picnic or a company Christmas party that I'm going to
We
try
do
to
a
have.
big holiday party.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
we
gonna have
do
to
a
get
really
an
big.
invite. I'm gonna have to get
Yeah,
an invite to that one
it,
this year, man. I can
it's a
see
good
that.
time. We do it down at Martell's, and
Oh, nice,
yeah,
nice,
it's a good time. And then over the summer, we'll do my dad, Charcoal Charlie, will come out. We'll get on the grills, and
awesome.
have feed lunch to all the employees when we can. So it's a good time. Yeah.
I love it. So just to wrap up with your father, Charlie. I love it, Charlie. My daughter's Charlie, so I love a good Charlie here.
Yeah.
What would be some of like the biggest piece of wisdom that was passed on to you by your dad? That I'd love to hear that from you.
I think there's a lot, and that's one of the things that I was thinking about prior to popping on here with you. He's got all these one-liners, and a lot of times, like, growing up, you hear him and you're like, that doesn't make any sense. And then like 30 years later, you're like, that makes perfect sense. So,
You got to share us one. You got to
I
give
got
us one, a
I
good
got a
one.
bunch of them written down
All
actually
right,
in
let's
front of
go.
me.
I got to hear one and see if I get it.
I think his biggest one is like, this ain't no dress rehearsal. Like, life, we get to do it one time.
Yeah,
So, I always questioned my dad a lot of times when I was a kid. I was like, why does he do things so big? Why is he just like living? Why is he going as hard as he does? And
yeah,
he basically got everything that we had as a family from nothing. He was self-made, so he enjoys himself, and
yeah.
works really hard. It took a lot of risks, and every day put that on the line. So, this ain't no dress rehearsal. I mean, he had it on his business card when I was a kid. This ain't no dress rehearsal. Um, when I was playing lacrosse, like he'd always be yelling, he'd yell two things: mad dog, right? So run like a mad dog is chasing you. And now my brother's lacrosse company is called Mad Dog Lacrosse. So we pay
Awesome.
homage to him on a regular basis with that. And then he'd yell deliberate moves. Only you know what you're doing next, not
Yep.
anybody else on the field. So be deliberate about it. You're in control, right? Um, don't get mad, get even. I think, every day in the business world, something happens where, oh man, like, at the end of the day, we're a supplier, we're a vendor to people. Things happen that hurt, they upset us, but instead of getting mad about them, let's figure out how to stay in the game and make the next play. That's kind of
Yeah.
the idea there, right? So like you'll hear our sales team say that all the time. Oh, I lost this job. Like, all right, don't get mad, get even. Let's figure out how to stay in the game, how to make the next play. And and I have a passion for things, to take care of the customer, somebody else will. Just like lots of
Yep.
little things that, yeah, they're common sense, and lots of people can say them, but at the end of the day, like what we're doing, yeah, it's printing. There's a lot of complexity, a lot of nuance to it, but it's really about like taking care of people, building relationships, leaving people smiling, leaving them laughing, making sure that they remember how we made them feel, and
Yep.
that sticks
Yep.
with people. And all those little things, all those little one-liners, at the end of the day, those are the life's fundamentals. And I think my dad is like drilled those into me, from day one. And there's probably a lot more that I'm not thinking of right now, but that's the gist of it.
I'm sure I'll hear more as we get to know each other more.
Yeah.
So, the podcast is called Going Beyond the Deal, and you probably have noticed this about me, Bill, but I I tend to like to hang out with people that are super driven and people that are into personal growth and getting after it and improving every day. So, the one reason why you and I have gotten in touch and now have developed a friendship, I feel like is just because of the stuff that we do on a daily basis that makes us better. I know you're a father like I am, but you're also into fitness and personal development, and you've been involved with things like Vistage and things that are just keeping you sharper and making you more relevant in the industry. Can you kind of get into some of your daily routines and non-negotiables that you do on a regular basis to help you show up really well as a leader, as a father, as a businessman?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for me, you know, home life is very busy. It's very rewarding. Me and my wife are both business owners. She runs successful restaurant called Seed to Sprout. I'm here every day, so we're both getting our 3 and 6 year olds out the door to school and making sure we're present for them in the morning. I mean, I think that's a big thing, and my wife does a tremendous job leading the charge on that every day. And we're both like super physically active. So for me, whether it's getting a workout, hitting the sauna, going to jujitsu, I'm trying to do one, if not all those things on a daily basis. Over the last few years, I've gotten like really big into doing breath work and meditating.
Yeah,
And I found, that practice, when I'm really disciplined about it, really helps me navigate kind of all the things that are coming at me on a regular basis and helps me kind of identify how I'm showing up and what I'm feeling. Just taking those pauses and kind of sitting with myself,
yeah,
rather than just like than letting the day just happen. Those times of reflection and just meditation are super helpful.
yeah,
So I think it varies for me from day to day, but like I have lots of like little things that I like to try to fit in, and I like to try to eat really healthy and keep it consistent there. So,
yeah,
lately it's been jujitsu, surfing, working out. The jujitsu journey, I'm like 9 months in. It's really humbled me to be a total beginner at something again at 41. And it's a journey I'm sharing with my wife. She's a little bit ahead of me, but I think for us it's like, you know all day every day we're getting hit with a million things. When you're on the mat and you're training, you have to be fully present. So just like immersing yourself in that environment, in that community, and walking in there and I'm not a president, I'm a white belt, and just being humbled and getting smashed and taking my lumps in there. I think for me, it's helped me in kind of all aspects of my life.
Yeah,
So I
for
think
sure.
that answer was like a little bit all over the place.
No, we love it. We love it.
While I'm like disciplined, I'm also like I'm going in a lot of different directions on a regular basis. So I
Yeah.
try to kind of just get the right mix of things to keep it fresh for myself.
For sure. I think the breathwork thing, it's really cool that you brought that up. That's one thing that as someone that's dealt with a lot of anxiety and different things like that, it's funny. I actually was writing about breathwork last night, and I got into Wim Hof, and I started using some of his breathwork techniques. And when you start to go through that cycle, and it really only takes a couple minutes, you could put yourself into a place where you're so aware of yourself and the way you're thinking and the way that you're doing. It's just a really great place to kind of start your day. And I think the breath work is something huge. I know we were joking around about cold plunges. You got back into your cold plunging today, and it was hard. So maybe the next time we get on a podcast, we could do an interview from the cold plunge and just see how long we could last.
I'm down for that. I mean, this morning I felt kind of pathetic. I did 3 minutes, but I hadn't done it in a while, and I couldn't get my bearings. And I think it just goes to show you, like, when you're putting yourself into difficult situations on a regular basis, like you build physical resilience that leads to mental resilience. So, like, so
Absolutely.
far today, the cold plunge was the hardest thing that I did. And hopefully, I think setting the tone with something hard in the morning, kind of opens up for the rest of your day. And just going back to the breath work thing real quick,
Of
I
course.
think we've, like, at least for me, like, the way I grew up, right? I always, and I think it's a societal thing. Like, we think that in order to overcome this feeling or this thing that I have, like, there's something external, right? A
Yeah.
drug, a drink, a prescription that's going to help me deal with this, right? We were conditioned that way. And now that, like, I've gotten a little bit older, I've explored some alternative things. I actually haven't had a drink in almost 11 years now. Like, I've eliminated a lot of the things that, I thought were just necessary or part of my life that I didn't really need, and
Yeah.
it's maybe it's exposed, and brought up some feelings that I didn't really deal with. Maybe I subconsciously was covering them up. And, like, through breath work, I've realized that, like, many, if not all, the answers are right here,
Yep.
and feeling those
Absolutely.
feelings, bringing attention to them, and getting through them, whether it's
Yeah.
breath work or meditation or journaling, whatever it is. Like, there's so much power in that. And it's just, it's been right there the whole time. And I just think, like, bringing more awareness to that is really important, because it's not all about, those external options. It's really about, like, it's all within you. And I think there's a lot to be said for that, and not enough attention brought to it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I always remember, with things like, drinking or eating bad or, whatever it is, right? To give you that temporary pleasure, that temporary relief. It was almost like, oh, okay, it's Friday. Now, okay, we should have a beer at 5 o'clock because we're ending the day. Or now I'm going to have that. Like, by kind of clearing out all that noise, and it opened up for a lot of space for me to be able to do things that really kind of pushed me along further. I think I shared with you with the cold plunge. I was like, I realized, like, my anxiety was getting so high, and it was because I said, I'm going to stop cold plunging for a while because I need to clean out my cold plunge. And then I realized, I was like, oh my God, that was the thing that kind of set my tone for the day. It was a start of one habit that led to three other things that I
Right.
really needed to do to stay present. But that's pretty awesome. So as far as Hatteras is concerned, and staying relevant, you said you guys are getting into a lot more of the packaging and different things like that, exploring anything else. What are some of the opportunities that you guys are evaluating, for the future as you continue to kind of lead the charge on what some people might not think is a booming industry, but as far as I can see, it's going, baby.
Yeah. And for us, it's like, like I said, not forgetting where we came from. So still doing the collateral, the direct mail, the retail signage and things like that, but evolving more toward packaging, specifically like folding cartons. So when you think about the traditional side of the business, it's tied to the sales and marketing efforts of a lot of our clients.
Yeah.
When we think about the folding carton, it's tied to the product. And while it does serve a purpose in the selling and the marketing of the product as it sits on the shelf or as it's delivered in e-commerce, it's tied to the product. So if the product is being sold, the box it goes in is being made, and that's never going to go away. That's not threatened by social media advertising. It's not threatened by email marketing because it's part of the good itself. So for us, trying to build more predictability into the business by driving more folding carton revenue is huge for us. And we also have a heavy focus on the ability to deliver data-driven and personalized communications in small batches and in very large-scale batches. So we've made some significant investments this year into technology, which will allow us to do things like foil stamping and coatings, which are, fancy, what we'll call embellishments, but personalize them. So the pieces going out to these high target prospects or high target influencers with big followings have these nice little touches on them that are going to get more exposure and elevate the brands that we're dealing with. And then in the summer, we're bringing in what's called a digital web press, which is basically just a way for us to deliver like high volume, data driven and personalized communications at big scale, very quickly, lots of speed to market. So the ability to, really drive that personalization and allow brands to connect directly with prospects and consumers, at scale or in these small touches where those small touches are going to get big exposure. That's really the value that we're trying to bring. And so is everybody else, right? We just want to do it better and a little bit differently. So having the platform with the equipment and the people and the technology to be able to deliver, and then allow our teams, our salespeople and our account management teams to like service the heck out of people. I think that's where we're going to differentiate, is becoming an extension of our client's team, and then being a resource where they can go to for 5 to 7 core needs.
Yeah.
Where we do so many different things, so we can become one point for these big companies. And for us, we don't have any customer that's bigger than 10% of the revenue, and managing that diverse customer base is really important. It just builds a lot of resilience into the company. So just kind of staying true to what got us here in that sense, and then evolving the solutions we're providing is critical for us.
Yeah, the packaging stuff that you guys are doing is super cool. And because it's the stuff that I notice, right? It's, I'm not, this isn't a plug for, Apple or anything like that, right? But, when you buy an iPhone, you buy a MacBook, like that packaging is part of the experience. It's
Right.
luxury. And that, it really shows a lot. And it was interesting to actually see some of the packaging being made. It's like, okay, like, yeah, this is something that I'd like to open up when I take out that bottle of cologne or whatever it is that you guys are printing. It's really a part of the product experience and the marketing of it. And like, if you're going to buy this, you're going to get a nice package as well, which is very, very cool. So, I mean, as far as, kind of wrapping up today, what would you say has been the biggest leadership lesson that you've learned, since becoming president at Hatteras?
Biggest lesson I've learned, I think, is to be yourself. And I've been asked that question before, you know, and you hear the term like fake it till you make it or fake it till you become it. Like at the end of the day, just be yourself, and you're not going to be for everybody, right?
Yeah,
It takes all kinds of people to make this world go around. Be yourself, be true to yourself, show up consistently, and eventually the right type of people are going to gravitate towards you, and the relationships that are going to help you carry, your legacy and your company's legacy and your family's legacy forward will kind of, you know, will come to be.
that's
Because,
awesome.
you know, like I said in the beginning, I always had this idea of what I thought a president should be. And you mentioned Vistage, which is a CEO peer group. your presidents and CEOs in a room. And when I joined that, it was probably 10 years ago. I was younger, 31, and I was looking for some help, how to be a president, how to be a CEO. And I got into the room, and it's just a bunch of killer people that are willing to take risks, that are passionate about what they do. Everybody had a little bit of a different skill set that they brought to the table, but everybody in that room was themselves. They
Yep,
weren't a bunch of stuffed suits. They were themselves, and they were passionate, and they were willing to take risks and put themselves out there. And I think at the end of the day, like, if you have those things and you can do that, go for it.
for sure, for sure. So, in wrapping this up, I certainly appreciate you coming on. I certainly appreciate you shining some light on what is a pretty mature industry, right? And the kind of new things that you're doing to keep it evolving. I think it's really, really wonderful. And I know that the listeners will appreciate it. Where can somebody, if people want to learn more about Hatteras, get in touch with you? What's the best way to get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, you can visit our website, hatteras.us, because we manufacture everything in the US, and we're
Very
here to
cool.
help you if you're dealing with any tariff situations. You can follow us on social media, _Hatteras, on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. We post a lot of content on there, kind of behind the scenes, how it's made. Or you can email us at connect@hatteras.us, or just come check us out in Tinton Falls.
Very cool.
We're about 3 minutes from the beach, so if you want to come check us out, tell your boss you're coming down the shore on a Friday to go see a great printing company. We can look at the shop and then head down the beach for the day.
Sounds good. Well, I, may or may not be doing that with Bill very often this summer. But I appreciate everybody joining us today. Make sure you go check out Going Beyond the Deal, where we have great interviews with amazing presidents and CEOs like my friend Bill Duerr. And Bill, I appreciate you coming on, my friend, and I look forward to hanging out with you soon.
Mike, thanks so much for having me. I'll see you soon.